everybody, welcome back to another video game analysis. I said that real fast, that's how good I am. Today we're going to be talking about the Metroid series for the first time, and what better place to start than talk about the protagonist, Samus Aran, the bounty hunter. My history with Samus and Metroid as a whole started very recently. Like, well, a lot of people adopted this Metroid early on, whether it was playing Super Metroid or even going further with regular Metroid. Or some people started with Metroid Fusion. A lot of people my age started with Metroid Prime. I myself would watch my dad play Metroid Prime. He was a big fan. He loved the Metroid Prime games. But it was just something I never played, Not because I didn't want to or I didn't like it. It's just I didn't play them. And then years later, I finally got started on Metroid Prime, which I'm Let's Playing on this channel. Being it, I'm not updating my Let's Plays right now, but that's another story. I wanted to get into the Metroid series, and I still do, because I know I'd enjoy them. I played pretty far into Super Metroid a while back, because I bought it on the Wii U for the first time, and, I love it. It's a lot of fun, and basically speaking, when it comes to the Metroid series as a whole, we'll talk about that another time, I guess, because, I do want to focus on Samus, but probably a lot I'm going to say about Samus will tie into that fact, where Samus, even from the beginning, was a great, diverse piece of Nintendo history. And when it comes to Nintendo as a whole, with all the properties, it's very nice how diverse their storytelling is with all these characters, and Samus is definitely one of those high up on the pantheon. So let's talk about that. The way you always begin the story when you talk about Samus is you talk about one of the greatest plot twists in video game history. Even to this day, all the way back in the NES, was when you played this whole time with this character you thought was so cool, had all these weapons, defeated all these big monsters, traversed through the whole planet and made it explode, and you had to escape, and it was cool. And you found out in the end you were playing a woman. And even in the Metroid manual, there was times where Samus, if they couldn't avoid using a pronoun, they would call her a he. And, it's something that, if you think about it, is a really, obviously it was a cool idea, but if you think about it, think about the implications of how the developers were thinking, hey, let's make Samus a woman. I think it's clear that they always intended that. But, in the end, it's like, you can think both it's a cool plot twist and that it's a brilliant way to get around hardware limitations. Because think about it, you have graphics that are all squares. You don't have circles for a while, and you think it's hard to make a feminine physique. That's something you can do later on, and we're going to see that. Because Samus's more modern design is definitely feminine. There's no mistaking it. But, it was just a good idea. It played around with people's expectations, and that's what Samus does on all the way around. Like, for Nintendo as a whole, Samus plays with the kind of expectations where she's such a diverse character from other characters in Nintendo. She's seen as more gritty. It's not colorful and bright when it comes to Samus, and it works. It works wonderfully. Samus, her character revolves around the idea that you don't expect what she does and how she does things. She goes into the unknown. She's always alone, but she figures things out, and she always gets pushed back to working with the bare essentials, the minimum of what she actually has at her disposal. And in every game, she will rise up and she will overcome, and she'll defeat enemies, especially like Ridley, because the origin of Samus is really cool. She was part of a human colony that was wiped out by Ridley, the big boss, the one she's always fighting, and it must feel really cathartic for her to beat time and time again, because she was the only survivor of these people. And she ended up being adopted and raised by these bird-like people known as the Chozo, who had cool technology, and that's how she got her technology. Everything about her is cool. Samus is just a great example of 80s coolness. And, the fact that she has a lot of inspiration from particularly the Alien series from the 80s, it works so well. And the way they have her evolve is a little rocky, which we'll talk about, because you had the she had her absences for certain consoles and generations, and it the fandom of Metroid is very strong, but also there's a lot of people who may have not ever played a Metroid game. I haven't played a Metroid game until much later on, like I said before, and either way, no matter what, you really about Samus, and she's cool. She's one of the big guys in Nintendo, and for good reason. Being cool is a big part of it, but yeah, let's just go on. Let's just go on to the next part. Let's do that. So to talk about one thing that was always cool, even though to this day, I don't know how Metroid Prime 4 is going to go, or how Samus Returns is going to go, but, to this day, Nintendo still tries to pull back on it a bit, but Samus is a bounty hunter. I want to bring that up real fast, because that's cool. I'm saying that word a lot. I do say that word a lot in a lot of episodes, but it's true. Cool people like cool things, and it's especially cool that you get a cool lady, It's cool. And, word of the day. Basically what I'm saying is, how unique is that? Nintendo always pushed, it's starting to change today, especially from last generation with things like Bayonetta 2 and all that. But Samus was a bounty hunter, that's a kind of subject, you didn't think Nintendo would talk about, but it worked with the story. You wanted it. It gave it a reason. It always gives Samus a motivation and a reason. And you want to learn about her. She's mysterious, but she's also upfront. You see what you see is what you get. That's pretty much what I'm trying to get at from the last bit. But moving on, her role as a character of Nintendo, it depends. It's weird. There's a lot of different styles. There's a lot of different ways to portray a game, and the Metroid series always did try a couple new things, but it was always good at evolving the games. Like one game to another, it was always really good at keeping that same style, keeping that same experience, but also even in the littlest ways, knowing how to evolve. And I like to think of that as Samus herself evolving and getting better at what she does. So like I said, there are a lot of changes, and there was one thing that everybody knew was how on earth were you going to make Metroid 3D? Remember, there were no Metroid 64 games. So that's an interesting thing to say, because, even Kirby, though it was still a 2D side-scroller, even Kirby had an N64 game, and that you really couldn't that was really tough to translate to 3D too. Like, even today, it's kind of tough. And, then you had Metroid Prime, which was a good idea. To just make a first-person shooter, but not in a way you'd expect it to be. It's amazing how you're able to change the point of view of a game, which this is something I think everyone who loves the Prime series appreciates. You can change an entire viewpoint of the game, but you still kept everything that made Samus cool. By the way, I'm just on this forever because I'm like, oh, I need a player too. I was kind of hoping I could play computer players. I'm playing multiplayer here because, like I said, I'm playing Metroid Prime, and I don't want to start Metroid 2 or Prime 2 or 3. And I figured I want to see what the multiplayer mode's like. I heard it was cool. I heard it was popular. But I'm a loser all alone here, so I had to improvise. So yeah. Now that context is out of the way, because I'm sure it would bug you what would be going on back there. Yeah, the Prime series is where the Metroid series really got popular, and Samus was always a well-known character, but still, her games weren't that played by the time the N64 came out because there was no games for her, so it caused a drop. And with the Prime games, you can tell this huge outcry for a new Samus game, for a new Metroid game, which happened. It's finally being delivered. Metroid Prime 4 is coming out. Then you have Samus Returns. Like, two consoles are getting a new Metroid game, which is it's great. Everyone should rejoice. Especially the Metroid fans who asked for it, because for when you have a pinball game, just to put that in perspective, Metroid Prime Pinball. If you have a pinball game, that's how you know you're starting to get big. If you have little side projects, the Metroid series got big, and I want to point that out because it made people care more. It made the mainstream audience want to pick up Metroid, which is really good. Not that Metroid didn't do well; it did great. It's a very good game. It sold very well. It's just it didn't make it to the likes of Mario or Sonic or Zelda or Pokemon or anything like that. It was a very good close second, but here we got it. The Prime series, they got it. And what really made it work was it kept the spirit of the game completely, but gave it a whole new perspective, like literally the point of view. That's an impressive thing. It's hard to make it translated without having to change a lot about the game. Think about it. When Mario went 3D, they had to change things. The spirit of Mario was there, of course. It had the look, it had the feel, it had the style. But the Prime games, that is, without a doubt, a Metroid game in 3D. Now, what does that have to do with Samus' character? Well, not much, I guess, admittingly, but it is important to point out because now Nintendo's saying, we gotta make more stories here. We gotta make more story-driven Metroid, because it always was. Like, you have... And, some of the best Metroid games, which I can't wait to try, were Zero Mission and Fusion for the Game Boy Advance, which is why I'm excited for Samus Returns, because those kind of style of games, they bumped up the storytelling, they bumped up the action and the dialogue and everything. And yeah, that kind of backfired with Other M, which, spoiler, it's the next bit, but overall, it helped boost Samus. You learn more about her. We even seen Zero Suit Samus outside of just an end cutscene in the likes of Smash Brothers and whatnot. And it's in Zero Suit Samus becoming just as recognizable as Samus herself. So it's really good, It's really good. I really stink at segues, don't I? So when talking about Other M, I got to point this out first because it's important. When talking about Other M, it's important to remember it wasn't a well-received game. It wasn't well-liked. Some people think it's the reason why you didn't see Samus on Wii U. But I still think it's complicated because that game did the most work into. It even gave Samus a full-on speaking voice. The Prime games had that in the first game, but they pulled it out. Samus speaking. You always had her in text, but never a speaking role. It was full-on voice acting. Now, if you remember when we talked about silent protagonists, I did make the point that a lot of times it's hard to make a silent protagonist speak because it ruins the image of what fans have of Samus or that silent protagonist in their mind, and that's what I think happened with Other M. And I want to point that out first because I'm going to be talking about my whole commentary there is going to talk about that idea. Because a lot of people were disappointed with how Samus was portrayed. And yeah, I disagree with it too. But, who knows if Nintendo's going to retcon it. We'll see in the next few games, but who knows if Nintendo's going to retcon that or something. But there's a lot of people who were disappointed because, people expected... Let's just get to the part and I'll talk about it. So yeah, here we are. Metroid Other M. Please ignore the giant flashing battery low icon. I haven't played that, as you can see, I haven't played that far into the game, and yeah, I'm right before this boss, and after I cut off this recording, I finally figured out how to beat it, and I did, but you're gonna see me struggling with that a little bit. The game is flawed. Personally, I like it. I think it's cool having they tried out the third person perspective, and it works pretty well. It's not perfect, but But I like the gameplay, but I do agree with a lot of fans that say the story... I thought it was really interesting change of pace for Nintendo, the way they told the story here. Like, it felt like you were watching a movie, and, while it is commonplace, especially at this generation for games to do that with their storytelling, it was rare for Nintendo. Very rare. But, I liked this. I thought it was an interesting idea. They made 2D rooms in Metroid 3D. I saw what they were going for. Everyone saw what they were going for. I think what really the people didn't like was how they portrayed Samus. Personally, I didn't like their choice of voice actor either. Like, while some people don't mind the voice actress, and she's a good voice actress, she does very well in this part. It's just everyone expected a more tough voice. Everyone expected Samus to be tough, and because when you have a silent protagonist, the world around it shapes the character of the person. And while that doesn't work all the time, like everyone says Mario has no personality, which if you watch previous video, shameless plug, I disagree with. But whatever. That's not the discussion today. The whole thing is Sam's got a voice, and yeah, there were things that I didn't like. Nobody liked how Samus's old Spirit Commander had to tell Samus when she can use her upgrades. It was like everyone liked the fact that having her being thrown on a wall was a better reason for her upgrades to leave than a commander telling her not to do it. She's a bounty hunter. She left the Galactic Federation for this reason. She broke away from the law because she knew she was good and she knew what she was doing, but she didn't want to be told by people. I said that's like the definition of a bounty hunter. It's like one step below vigilante, pretty much. You call your own shots. You do your own things. You done so much on your own. It's like now it's like, oh well, now it's like let's be buddies and let's work together. Yeah, I got it, but I'm looking forward to seeing how Nintendo works around this because I think everyone thinks they know that people didn't like what happened here with the other M, but that aside, the whole point is Samus has an opportunity to change up a lot in her character because who knows if they bring back voice acting? I think they might, especially with Breath of the Wild doing so well with voice acting. But who knows? Metroid Prime 4 has a lot to there's a lot to look forward to there. Samus Returns is even a lot to look forward to there. And Kid Icarus Uprising proved that the 3DS can do that kind of dialogue and whatnot, storytelling. Though I doubt it, but I want to see what they do with Samus. I want to see if they'll ignore, we know they won't ignore other M. It's in the timeline, but it's important to know that this is where Samus is now. People are unsure about how Nintendo wants to set her up. And even Nintendo's probably unsure how they want to set her up. But we're looking forward to seeing them try. There's a future here for Metroid again that everyone's excited for. And yeah, that's. I'm looking forward to seeing how. Basically, I'm looking forward to seeing how they work around with Samus and make her the best she can be. Because especially things like her always being scared stiff of Ridley, even though she fought him 1,000 times before, it was a bit of a problem for people, and I understand that. So yeah, Samus is a defining character in video games. I think a lot of people can agree with that for good reason. And you know, let's see how Nintendo's gonna go forward because they got something with Metroid since the beginning. But the whole blossoming of Metroid Prime that made people want to know Samus. They want to know who she is, like how she gets around. Where she gets the idea that she can just keep losing her upgrades when we could just start with all of it and kick some butt. But yeah, that's all for now. But who knows? Maybe a follow up will come up soon. All right, so next time I want to talk about difficulty in 8-bit gaming and 16-bit gaming. Go back to the old generations, the beginning of the video game market after the crash of '83, and let's talk about that because there's always a whole conversation about the difficulty of those games and why they were that way and how people wish you can go back to that. Or it's kind of changing today, but you know, we'll talk about that next time. If there's anything I missed, if there's anything I got wrong, if there's anything you would like to add to the conversation, please do not hesitate to leave a comment. And a like and a share would be cool too. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm Billy, your Video Game Analyzer. Have a good day, good night whenever you're watching this, and I'll see you next time.